Hey everyone, I'm Aaron from Finctum Languages, and in this video I want to talk about the 4 types of language learning apps that you might want to use if you are learning a language. And I'm going to talk about some specific apps that I'm going to give as examples, but more generally I'm going to talk about the 4 main types of apps, or what you should look for in an app that you might use to learn a language. Before I get into any of the details of this video, I just want to say a big thanks to all of my Patreon sponsors. So if you are interested in being a sponsor for this channel, you can go to patreon.com/Finctum and check out the different tiers, see what benefit levels you are interested in joining, and we will have a good time and a good relationship. Anyways, with that said, I want to get into the first type of language learning app that you should be using. And many of you know that I consider there to be 3 pillars of language learning. All right, that is comprehensible input, conversation practice, and vocabulary acquisition. So the first type of app that I think you should be using in your target language is comprehensible input. What do I mean by that? Comprehensible input is anything that you do in the language that you are taking in but not putting out. Okay, so you might be reading in your target language, you might be listening in your target language, you might be watching something in your target language. All right, and one great example of an app that you can use to do that is Netflix. Here, let me turn up the brightness a little bit so you can see a little bit better. I regularly use Netflix. As you can see here, I've been watching a Thai Netflix series called Tunnel. And in fact, I'm also using a Google Chrome add-on called language learning with Netflix. There's language learning with Netflix, and there's also another kind of sister app called language learning with YouTube. And this is really nice because it allows me to just watch a show. It's just something fun that I would want to do anyways on Netflix, right? That's why you have a Netflix subscription, because you want to entertain yourself. You want to watch something entertaining. You want to watch something fun. Sometimes you just want to lay back and relax and not work a whole lot and just do something relaxing. And language learning with Netflix allows you to take that time that you would spend just doing something fun and entertaining and turn it into a period of time that is at least slightly productive. So while I'm watching a series on Netflix, I can at least get some exposure to the language that I'm learning. And I usually watch series on Netflix with English subtitles. Okay, oops, let me go back here a second. I usually watch series on Netflix with English subtitles, as you can see here. But language learning with Netflix, the Google Chrome add-on, allows me to also be looking at the Thai subtitles as well, or the subtitles in my target language. Over here, it has a lot of the vocabulary words that you're going to see. And then it also has a really nice feature where you can hover over a word and see what it means. So in that case, it's similar to Link in a lot of ways, except it's Link for watching movies and TV shows as opposed to reading books and articles. That brings me, obviously, to Link itself. Many of you know that Link is probably my favorite language learning app so far. It's not perfect. It's not all-encompassing, but I find it to be quite useful in my language learning. One of the limitations for me as of right now is they don't have the Thai language. So if you are learning a language that is not listed among these here, there's also another website you could use called Readlang.com. And this one, fortunately for me, actually does have Thai and is very similar to Link in a lot of ways. If you are interested in Link, though, you can go ahead and use this subscription code up here. Just go to this URL. And if you're planning on subscribing to Link anyways, because you think it's a good program like I do, or you just want to give it a try, go ahead and use this code. You will save up to 35% for a year subscription. So that's just free money for you. And also, I get a little bit of a kickback on your subscription. So it's win-win. Link, if you don't know, Link is great because, let me just show you here. It allows you to go through and read articles, to read books, to read novels in your target language. For example, I was reading the Witcher novel here. It allows you to go through and read novels in your target language. And rather than stopping every time you don't know a word, all you do is you just click on that word and it'll show you.
Lucio.
All right, I didn't know the word Lucio, which means pike, as in like a long spear. All right, and rather than stopping and having to look up the word, I can just click on it and then I instantly see a translation of that word. All right, Link also has a lot of other features, like it keeps track of which words you know, which words you don't know, and it's very helpful in that sense. So the first type of app that I'm going to recommend to anyone who is learning a foreign language is Comprehensible Input apps. Okay, Netflix and Link are the first two examples that come to mind for me. And that will cover the comprehensible input pillar of your language learning. Another type of app that I always recommend is conversation practice apps. Okay, conversation practice is another pillar of language learning in my view. And a good example of an app like this is Hello Talk. All right, Hello Talk actually doesn't have a very extensive website, so I can't show you a whole lot right here in this stream, but they have a very, very good app. In my opinion, it's probably the best app for finding conversation partners in your target language. Another good example would be Tandem, which a lot of people have recommended and like. And then there's other things like Lingbee and interpels.net. Anything that will allow you to find someone that you can talk to in your target language and just hold a conversation is going to be really valuable. It's what I call it's going to help you get out of the silent box. All right. And I call it the silent box because a lot of language learners sort of box themselves in. They want to learn languages alone in their bedroom, laying in bed on a Duolingo all day. And that's just not a great way of learning the language. At some point, you're going to have to leave that box, go out into the world and find someone to talk to. All right. Language learning cannot be boiled down to just memorizing vocabulary words and learning the grammar that goes along with it. It's a lot messier than that. And you're just going to have to get comfortable and get used to sort of the mess and sort of the painful experience that comes along with flubbing through a conversation and making lots of mistakes and sort of being embarrassed when you're talking to a real person in real life. It's not clean, it's messy, it's not easy, it's hard, and it's embarrassing. But the more you do it, and the earlier in your language learning journey that you do it, the earlier you're gonna get through that difficult process, and you will come out of it eventually and start to feel a lot more comfortable and at ease in the language, even though you won't be able to speak perfectly for a long time or maybe ever. So don't have the idea in mind that you're just going to sit down, memorize all the grammar, memorize all the vocabulary words, and then you'll be able to speak. Instead of having that goal of being able to speak perfectly once you just do all of the studying, instead set your minds to the goal of, I want to be able to communicate pretty well. And I want to be able to be okay with not communicating perfectly. In my view, that is one of the big goals that you should try to accomplish in language learning, is coming to the point where you're okay with making mistakes and where you don't have this internal anxiety and fear that comes along with actually speaking to someone. Once you reach that point, you are well on your way to rapid improvement in the language. And HelloTalk or other apps that are designed to hook you up with native speakers is a great way to accomplish that, and a great way to help you start improving in that area. HelloTalk has a lot of features like a built-in translator. You can see here in this sort of like example of the app, they have a little translation feature where someone is learning English, so they said, "Hi, how is you?" And then the native speaker was able to give them a gentle correction. Now, it's not "how is you," it's "Hi, how are you?" And then you can also see they're able to send voice messages to each other so that they can practice getting some pronunciation practice in. It's a social app, so maybe you're just going to send people pictures of your vacation. You can make posts of whatever you're interested in. It's really a lot more fun than sitting on Duolingo and doing exercises all day, because there is a sort of inherent enjoyment in interacting with another person. And so HelloTalk, Tandem, you could maybe find a conversation partner on Reddit or on a Facebook group. Anything you can do that will help you spark conversation with a native speaker is going to be very valuable. italki is also another great choice for that if you have the money to just pay someone to have a conversation with you. The third type of app that I want to recommend is vocabulary acquisition apps, right? So again, my 3 pillars of language acquisition are comprehensible input, comprehensible input. Wait, what did I say? Comprehensible input, conversation practice, and focused vocabulary acquisition. All right. Now, if you do comprehensible input and if you do conversation practice, if you do those things alone, you will eventually start to acquire vocabulary. All right. But I like to add this third one in there because this is a focused time for you to focus specifically on learning new words. Learning as many words as possible is one of the most important things you can do in a new language. It goes along with what I was saying earlier, where you're not going to be able to speak perfectly right away. But if you learn lots of words early on, then you can generally express what you want to express in an imperfect way, but you'll be able to communicate more or less efficiently. And a lot of people get really hung up on memorizing grammar rules, and that's okay. There's a school of thought that says you learn grammar early on. Grammar is not bad. It's not wrong. I don't hate grammar, but especially early on, you're going to get a lot more mileage out of learning words. If you spend your early stages in the language learning words and a little bit of grammar, that's going to take you a long way. Because if you know all of the grammar rules, you know exactly how to conjugate verbs, you know exactly how to use certain noun cases and when and where and why and how to do that, but you don't know many words, you're still not going to be able to say a whole lot. But if you know lots of words and you don't necessarily know the right grammar, you'll be able to express yourself. Okay, you'll be able to say whatever you want to say, not perfectly, but you'll at least have the words to throw out there. And you can kind of use Benny Lewis, I think, calls it Tarzan speech or caveman speech. You can speak, and you have the nouns, you have the verbs, you can throw them out there, maybe not always in the right order, maybe not always with the right conjugations, but you'll be able to say something. And saying something with the words that you know is a lot better than not being able to say anything, even though you know all the grammar. So I do recommend a moderate amount of focused vocabulary acquisition. And there's apps like Memrise. Another very popular one is Anki. These are essentially digital flashcard decks, and they use what we call spaced repetition. So they'll show you a word or a flashcard the first day, and then they'll show you the same flashcard again the next day, at the point where you may have been about to forget that word that you learned the day before. Then, after seeing this word 2 times in a row, they'll maybe wait 2 or 3 days to show you that same word, because you can remember it just a little bit longer. And then just at the point where you're about to forget that word again, that's when they show it to you. And then they'll wait maybe 4, 5, 6, 7 days to show you the same word again, and then 10 days, and then a month. Eventually, you'll get to the point where you don't need to keep reviewing this word just because you've seen it enough times. And every time you see it, it's right at the point where you're about to forget it. And the beauty of that is that when you see a word that you're about to forget, it makes you work a little bit harder to try to recall that word. If you see the same word every single day, you don't need to try very hard to remember it because you just saw it the day before. You don't need to work very hard to remember it. But if you see a word that you're about to forget, your brain has to go through that process, and you have to sit there and struggle for a minute to try to recall, what is that word? What is that pronunciation? How is it spelled? And you little by little, you start to build up your memory of that word again. And that process of struggling to remember the word is actually more powerful in helping you learn the word and learn it more profoundly, more deeply, than saying the same word every day. So spaced repetition in apps like Memrise or Anki are actually very useful. And by the way, Link also has a spaced repetition system built in. Let's see, where is it? Go to my home. I don't remember how to get here. I'll go home. Link has a built-in vocabulary acquisition system, right? So you can go through and review. They use spaced repetition just like Memrise or Anki. I don't necessarily like the Link SRS system quite as much as I like Memrise or Anki, but there are some features that I like pretty well. So if you already use Link, by the way, I always have to say this, Link is spelt Lingq. It's not LingQ, it's just pronounced Link. Okay, that's just a little disclaimer I have to give every time. If you already are using Link, I would definitely recommend trying out their spaced repetition system. See if it's for you, and if not, that's fine. Use a different system like Memrise or Anki. Another one that I just started using recently is called Closemaster. And all of these different systems have their pros and cons. Okay, sometimes the cons outweigh the pros, sometimes the pros outweigh the cons. Closemaster is a very interesting concept because it always helps you learn new words in the context of a full sentence. And that to me is quite valuable. All right, I'm not saying Closemaster is the best spaced repetition app, but some people might like it more than others, but that also just means that some people will like it. Okay, let me just give you an example here really quick. You choose how many sentences you want to review in a day. They show you a sentence, and then you choose the word that best fits in that sentence. And one thing that I like about this is this sentence here is entirely in Thai. It's all in my target language. So ฉันได้ยินเสียงในห้องนอน All right.
ฉันได้ยินเสียงในห้องนอน
I didn't see any translation of this sentence up until after I had already gotten it right. And that makes me think in my target language. I'm not just thinking in translations. I'm trying to see how all of these different words fit into the context of a sentence. And to me, that's a lot more valuable than For example, on Memrise, if you just learn individual words in isolation, separated from the context of a sentence or from the context of real world, that's not great. However, of course, on Memrise and on Anki, you actually can use full sentences. There's ways to do that. So all of this to say, I'm not telling you which spaced repetition system to use, but try to find something that helps you learn vocabulary words in a more focused and strategic manner, okay? Because learning words is very, very important. Of course, the first two pillars are going to also help you learn words: vocabulary, conversation practice, and comprehensible input. Okay, you will learn words if you do those two things, but I just find it also helpful to find one app and spend a little bit of time every day, not long, 5, 10, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, tops. 20 minutes is even kind of stretching it. I do vocabulary acquisition apps for like 5, 10 minutes a day, and that's it. And then the rest of my day I spend using conversation practice on things like HelloTalk or italki, and then comprehensible input with Netflix, Link, things like that. Okay, and then the fourth type of app that I'm going to recommend today does not fall under any of my 3 pillars of language learning. All right. Now, the reason I call these 3 things pillars, the comprehensible input, conversation practice, and vocabulary acquisition, the reason I call them pillars is because they hold up the weight of your language learning. They support your language learning. They are the essential processes that you have to go through that hold up your language learning. Without them, you can't get very far. That doesn't mean that there's the only 3 things that you should ever do. There's other things that can be sort of helps along the way, and they're not the main source of language learning, but you can do them, okay? Some people like to have a grammar book, and they go through and they look up a little grammar rule once in a while. Okay, that's fine. If that makes you feel better, if it's really painful for you to not understand the grammar of your language, okay, fine, do that on the side. That's not what you do to learn a language, because that's not one of your 3 main pillars of language learning. But you can read a grammar book on the side. Okay, you can go to a class in high school or in college, and that can help you. Some classes are very good, actually. Some classes do focus on vocabulary acquisition, comprehensible input, conversation practice. Okay, generally speaking, in a class at school, especially early on, you're going to be memorizing vocabulary words and probably studying grammar rules, right? And you're going to be taking tests, doing exercises that aren't very fun at all. They don't motivate you to want to keep going. But whatever, if you're the kind of person who enjoys going to class and doing exercises, I don't have any arguments against that if that's what you like to do. But it's not one of the 3 pillars. Okay, that's not how you learn a language. Pulling out your workbook and filling in the little blanks and doing exercises, that's not a pillar of language learning. Okay, but I have one type of app in here that doesn't fall under the 3 pillars, and I'm going to call it a primer. Okay, and the 2 examples I want to show you are Duolingo and Pimsleur. Okay, Pimsleur is better known for their CD courses. Now they are starting to offer like online apps and for example, let me just show you here. You can you can either buy their way overpriced CD course, or you can use their app, which I find to be more reasonable. Okay, Pimsleur and Duolingo. What is their value? To me, the value of these apps is that when I first start a language, and I might not even know where to start, I don't know anything about the language, they offer a very beginner-friendly introduction to the language. They help you get your feet wet. Okay, they're a primer. They just spark your learning. Okay, maybe you don't feel like you're sufficient enough, like your language level is not high enough to watch a movie in Netflix. Or maybe you open up a book in Spanish. Here's the Pan's Labyrinth in Spanish, and maybe you open up this book and you just see all of these words in link. All of these words that are blue, and you just don't understand any of them. And then you're like, okay, well, I'm just lost in the sauce at this point. It's not any use to me to go through a novel of words that I don't understand. Or maybe you don't want to start off speaking from day one. Okay, well, some people don't like to do that. You don't want to use Hello Talk right from the very beginning. Okay, there's a primer for you, just a way for you to get introduced to the language. They start you off very easy. Okay.
Saluton. Mi estas Adamo.
They teach you how to say, hello, my name is
Mi
Adam.
Adamo.
And they give you a translation of every single word, right? Hello, I am Adam, right? They start you off very easy. And then, and it's not intimidating. Pimsleur does something very similar in an audio format, purely audio. Okay, so especially if you're learning a language that has very advanced scripts or very difficult, like for me when I was learning Thai, Pimsleur was great. I'm still learning Thai, but I mean when I first started learning Thai, Pimsleur was great because rather than having to learn all 46 letters in the Thai alphabet and all of their diacritics and tones and all of the strange rules about when vowels go behind the letter that they're supposed to be in front of, I didn't have to learn any of that because Pimsleur is all audio based. Okay, I didn't have to learn any of the strange orthography rules. I just would listen and repeat, and they start you off very easy. Hello, do you speak English? Yes, I speak English. Or no, I don't speak English. I want to learn Thai. Hello, how are you? Things like this. Okay, and you very quickly outgrow these things though. Okay, I would say it's almost never worth your time and effort to go all the way down to your Duolingo tree and finish the whole thing. As you can see, I did complete the Duolingo tree in Esperanto, and that was fine. I didn't know what else to do at the time when I was going through my Duolingo tree, so I just continued slowly progressing through the Duolingo tree, and it starts to get boring after a while, but okay, I did it. And that did give me a good basis in the language. I eventually went through all of the different grammar features of Esperanto. I forgot most of them, right? But I at least learned them at some point. And now if I go back and if I see that grammar feature at some point in my comprehensible input or in my conversation practice, well, then it might spark a memory of back when I was doing Duolingo. It may or may not do that. The same with Pimsleur. They start you off very easy. Every lesson builds off the last one, so it's systematic. Okay, they're not just throwing you into a huge sea of unknown words like what might happen if you first start using Link right away, or God forbid you start watching a movie that's designed for native speakers right away. Okay, it's a little bit more systematic. They start you off from ground zero, right where your level currently is if you're starting the language, and they slowly work you up. So to me, that is the value of these primers, like Pimsleur, Duolingo, anything that starts you off from square one. They lose a lot of their value after about a month. If you have been learning a language for a month, Duolingo it just doesn't hold a lot more value for you. And if you have learned a language for 3 months, some people like to continue going with Duolingo for a long time, and okay, whatever, that's fine. If Duolingo makes you comfortable and it helps you to feel like you're still making progress because you're going through your tree, okay, fine. But don't overdo it. I don't like when people think that in order to progress in their language, they just have to be more diligent at doing Duolingo every day, or they're worried about losing their streak. Okay, that is wasting your time. It's a trap. You've probably seen many of my videos about Duolingo. It's valuable for a short period of time, but the way these apps are designed is to trap you. They want to get you to continue using their product, right? That's the point of these apps. They want you to be on their app, using their app all the time, whether or not it's still beneficial to you. And as you can see, my Duolingo streak is 0 days, and I am progressing in my language very well. Okay, I am progressing very quickly through Thai right now, and also in Esperanto. I'm learning probably more Esperanto right now because I'm doing a Zoom conversation class. Really, I'm doing a Zoom class with a bunch of other people who are learning Esperanto, and the professor, a teacher who is fluent in Esperanto, and that's a lot more helpful to me than Duolingo ever was. Okay, and actually, I must confess that the Duolingo course for Esperanto is very well made. If there was any Duolingo course that you should continue using for months and months, it would be the Esperanto one. That can be debated. Anyways, I've talked enough. These live streams are not meant for me to just do a monologue. They're a conversation. So anyways, I see Linguitarian has done a super chat. Thanks very much for that. I appreciate. For those who don't know, a super chat is just when you make a donation to my channel, and then your question or your comments gets highlighted. He said, "Hey, thanks, bro. You inspire me to make my own language videos and keep pursuing my neurolinguistics PhD." That's awesome. Yeah, a lot of people have really enjoyed my Linguistics 101 video series, which has a lot of people have been mentioning that my my linguistics series has helped them with finals, and like my explanations have been as useful or more useful as their professors. So yeah, I'm glad I can help. That's what I'm here for. Let's see, any other highlighted comments? Okay, I don't see any yet. Okay, Elizabeth Hornberger says, "What is comprehensible input?" And great question. This is very important to know. Comprehensible input is one of the 3 pillars of language learning. It's one of the 3 things that you should definitely be doing in order to learn a language. And anytime I refer to input as opposed to output, I'm referring specifically to reading and listening. Okay, input is what you take in, the language that goes into your brain by reading it or by listening to it. Output is speaking or writing. It's when you produce language. It's when you think of some of the language in your brain and then you put it into the real world. It's output, right? So comprehensible input is just input that is comprehensible, okay? And so distinguish that from incomprehensible incomprehensible input. If you've ever tried to watch a movie in your target language and you didn't understand what was going on, which probably all of us had that experience at some point. If you've ever opened a book in your target language, right? Like I'm learning Thai. So for probably almost everyone reading or watching right now, this right here is incomprehensible, okay? Input, there's some debate about this, but most of the research that we have on second language acquisition is that input is most valuable when it is comprehensible. So for example, let me show you a few. Okay, this to me is incomprehensible. I can look at this page all day long and I will have no idea what it says. Or, well, I would have an idea of what it says, but it would be very difficult and very tedious and monotonous and boring for me to try to work my way through that book. I would not be able to understand even the gist of that book without looking up a whole bunch of words. This book I can read through, and I don't need to look up words, and I can understand what's going on. Partially because there's pictures, right? I can see Mani is coming home to hang out with her dad. She's bringing her dog Do, and they're coming home, and then they're gonna eat dinner at home, right? I see them sit down for a picnic in the backyard, and I see them discuss the food, the mangoes that they're eating, right? And it uses simple words. That's comprehensible. This book, for me, is marginally comprehensible. Okay, there are pictures, so I can see to some extent what's going on. Right, I can see the little prince sitting on his planet watching the sunset. I also happen to know the story very well. The Little Prince, I've read it in Spanish, French, Esperanto. I've never read it in English, but I've read this book many, many times in multiple languages. So I know the story. I know what's going on. I can read through the story without having to stop and look up every word that I don't know. That's comprehensible input. And the research that we have right now, if you look up anything by Stephen Krashen, he's probably the most well-respected, the most well-known researcher on how people learn languages, or at least second languages. And his theory is that we don't acquire languages any other way other than taking in inputs that when you understand the message and then you hear the message in that language. That's more or less a paraphrase of what he has of his research, I should say. All right, that's comprehensible input. Aloha, Maddie. Hello, Nelson. Hello, everyone. Thanks. I apologize for missing all of your comments while I was doing my opening monologue there. Okay, Maki says, I like to memorize, but they want me to pay to continue the course. Yeah. I've had so many people comment on this because I have listed Memrise as one of my favorite free apps before. And then every time I list Memrise as a free app, someone comments on the video, Memrise isn't free. And I don't understand why people say that, because I've literally never paid for Memrise in my entire life. And there are a few features that I can't use. Like there's a few features that you have to pay to get access to, but I just use the free version and it literally gives me everything that I need that I want to use Memrise for. So I'm a little bit confused why I always get so much pushback of people saying that they have to pay. I don't know. Maybe it's because I started using the app before they had a paywall or something. So maybe I got grandfathered in, or I don't know what the issue is there. But I promise you, I don't pay for Memrise. And I know people who don't pay for Memrise and use it for free. So I'm not quite sure why. There's some way to use Memrise for free. So if you think it's not free, maybe try a little bit harder, or look for different. I don't know. Look around the website and try to see. Yeah, I don't know what the issue is there. I don't mean to sound condescending. Just try harder. Yeah, I don't know. Okay. Maki says, I have Syrian Spanish, so I have to say Spanish phrases. Hey, that's not a bad way to go about doing it. Maki says, I hope he reads the super chat. Yeah, I'm sorry. It took me a while to come back and look at the chat again, but thank you. I appreciate the super chat. Linguitarian said, I made a video responding to your 7 reasons to not learn a language. There's no way I saw it. I actually did not see it, but I will look it up, or maybe share a link in the chat here, and I'll check it out. That video got a lot of responses. People had a lot to say about reasons that you shouldn't learn a language. And obviously, I don't mean to say that people should stop learning languages or people should not learn languages. But that I made this video, for those who don't know, I made this video, 7 reasons to not learn a language. And it was basically in response to this perceived idea I get a lot in the language learning community, where it's like people, polyglots and people who are learning languages, I see them on Twitter and on Instagram and on YouTube. I get a very condescending sense of people who are learning languages, like thinking, oh, we're better than monolingual people. Anyone who is not actively learning a language is wrong, or they're lazy, or they don't have enough respect for other cultures. And I'm like, okay, I'm really the only one in my family who has actually successfully learned a language, in my immediate family at least. And I don't get the sense that the other people in my family are in any sense less, like, gonna make it through life less satisfied or something, right? Like that. There's just so many people who go through life very content being monolingual, and they, maybe they would like to learn a language, but learning a language is hard. It takes lots of time and effort and money to learn a language, and these people just have other goals, and that's fine. Like, we don't all have the same hobby. It's not to say that one hobby is better than the other, but I don't assume or presume to tell other people that my hobby is better than yours, therefore you should do what I do as well. I'm not trying to convince anyone to not learn a language. Really what I was trying to do there is get some people in the polyglot language learning community to stop being so pretentious. Like, we are better than you because we know languages. No, like that's what I was trying to combat. Anyways, the video got a lot of hate. Like, I was telling people they shouldn't learn a language. And all I'm saying is, if you choose to not learn languages, then no judgment. That was the point. Anyways, Maki says, my mom knows Spanish and we read Spanish children's book together. Hey, yeah, that's what you call comprehensible input. Children's books are cool to an extent. Children's books are usually a little bit easier to read than adult books, right? Like, is it easier to read this book or this book? Well, this book is easier. Okay. The problem with children's books is they're boring. Sometimes it depends. I find The Little Prince to be actually quite a charming book, so I can read through it. It's not, isn't it, like my favorite, the book series that kept me reading more than any others was probably Game of Thrones. Also, The Hunger Games. Man, I read The Hunger Games I read the first book. I started reading the first book on Friday. I was done by Sunday. So I read the whole book in a weekend. And then I read the whole second book that week. Like, I started reading on Sunday, ended on Friday. And then I read the third book that weekend. So it took me, but it was like I would literally go to work and come home and then just read. That's what you want in a language learning. Anything that's going to help you learn a language, you want it to be that compelling that you can't put it down. You can't stop using the language, right? I remember when I was reading the 5th Harry Potter book back in 2005. I was like a freshman or sophomore in high school. And I remember it was that summer, I would literally stay awake till 4 a.m. reading Harry Potter. If you find something that can grasp your attention that much and compel you to keep using it in your target language, you have struck gold. Because then it's not work to stay in your target language. It's not work to keep practicing. It's enjoyable. It's a pleasure. And children's books just don't do that for me. Some adult books do, but children's books don't. I'm trying to bridge that gap. So like, for example, if you look in the description below this video, you will see the books that I have created. They're on Amazon right now. And I'm trying to make children's books, I'm trying to find a bridge between children's books and adult books where it's still easy enough to read that you can understand. It uses basic vocabulary. It has pictures so you can follow along. But the plot is a little bit deeper. The plot is a little bit more interesting to adults, right? I wrote a book about zombie apocalypse, okay? If you have read, if you watched The Walking Dead, I'm not saying my book is on par with The Walking Dead. But it's not for kids. That's what my goal is. And try to make them a little bit more interesting. I think I'm still progressing as a book writer. So I'm learning, trying to figure out. My first book that I wrote was about dragons. It was about like a little dragon who wanted to eat donuts. And then after I published that one, I'm like, that one still is kind of like a kid's book. I put some like darker tones into it, maybe a little bit of irony to kind of help adults stay a little bit more interested. But then the next time I was like, all right, this one's for adults. This one's for anyone who likes The Walking Dead. So it's about zombies. And yeah, so I feel like my zombie book even still took sort of a kid's book kind of tone, but it's moving in the right direction, trying to keep adults' attention. My next book that I make, hopefully within the next month or so, I'm going to start working on this. My next book I decided is going to be a murder mystery. I'm going to really try to leave behind this kid's book feel, but keep the same level of intelligibility, the level of comprehension of easy vocabulary that a kid's book has, but just put it into a murder mystery that's designed to holds the interest of an adult. And we'll see how well I actually succeed in that. Okay, Davey says, thanks, Aaron. Now I believe in comprehensible input. Excellent. I'm doing my job then. Davey says, Esperanto is, wait, I'm sorry, I just missed. Sorry, I'm missing a lot of comments here. I know I'm going so slow. I can never keep up with the comments. Okay. Esperanto is good, the true language of good. Yeah, it's like Tokipona. Okay. The Esperanto on Duolingo was actually kind of nice. Right. The Duolingo course for Esperanto was probably the best Duolingo course I've ever seen. But Esperanto is just also, it's so easy to learn Esperanto no matter what method you're using. But yeah, Duolingo really shone. Duolingo really shows its best side when you're learning Esperanto on Duolingo. Would I say that comprehensible input is also useful for Esperanto? 100%. There's a lot of Esperanto music out there. There's a very easy book that I'm reading right now called Gerda Malaperis, and it sort of does the same thing that I'm trying to do with my books that I mentioned in the description below. It's a mystery, right? Like you're trying to solve the mystery. Gerda gets kidnapped, and then you're trying to figure out who kidnapped her, why did they kidnap her, how is she going to get rescued? Okay, but it's very easy. It's designed for learners, and that's what I like. Yeah, that's comprehensible input. Does comprehensible input count as studying? Yeah. I mean, I always tell people to not study the language, use the language. All right. So it depends what you mean by studying. Some people think of studying, like in order to learn a language, you have to study a lot. And by study, what I mean is open your textbook, do all the exercises, open your workbook, fill in the blanks, choose the multiple choice. That's a waste of your time. I'm sorry, but that's just not the most effective way to learn a language. And if it's fun for you, you can do it. That's fine, whatever. Not going to stop you, but that's not where your language learning takes place. Comprehensible input is going to be very valuable. You just get so much exposure to the language. You get a sense of how the language is. You sort of internalize the language, and you're going to learn a lot of words because you're coming into contact with a lot of words as you're reading through a novel or watching a TV show. Linguitarian says, I think it depends on your learning style. Some people prefer it. Some people love Duolingo and some hate it. Some like grammar more than others. It depends. Yeah, and I don't tell people to stop doing something that they enjoy. What I do tell people is Duolingo will not bring you to fluency. If you want to do it because it's fun, do it because it's fun. Okay, we all have different learning styles. Yeah, that's true. And some people prefer to start speaking from day one. Some people prefer to start speaking later on and get a lot of comprehensible input first. Whatever, we all have our different opinions about when you should start speaking, when you should start using comprehensible input. Okay, those are both valid schools of thought. There is no valid school of thought that says, well, I have a different learning style and my learning style is to use Duolingo all the way to fluency. I'm sorry, that's just not real. It just isn't. It doesn't exist. Okay, if you think you're going to use Duolingo and that Duolingo will take you to C2, you're just going to be disappointed. We all have different learning styles, but that's not one of them. Okay. Now, we do have different learning styles to an extent. Maybe some people will really benefit from using Duolingo for a month or 2 months or 3 months. Maybe there's someone out there who has a learning style who they can use Duolingo to take them all the way to A2 or B1. I don't know. I'm not trying to make any bold claims that no one out there will ever benefit from Duolingo. What I'm saying is that Duolingo is not enough. And I promise you that. I promise you at some point you got to stop using Duolingo and start doing something else fun. You don't have to stop. I mean, you can keep using Duolingo, but you have to do something else. Okay, Duolingo is not enough. And I'm sorry, I don't mean to come off as the anti-Duolingo person. Okay, the reason I talk, I always say there is some benefit to Duolingo. Duolingo has its place, but the reason that I might come off as always being anti-Duolingo is because there's so many people who seem to think that Duolingo is the key to their language learning success when it's not. Okay, if there was like a huge number of people who said never use Duolingo, it's garbage, it's trash, don't even try it out, don't even waste your time trying one lesson, then I would be on the opposite side, right? Then I would be a passionate supporter of trying out Duolingo for a month. Okay, but as it is, I'm trying to fight against a false narrative of Duolingo being better than it is. So that's why I kind of maybe can be misunderstood as being very anti-Duolingo when actually I'm more of a centrist on the Duolingo spectrum. Okay. Voldemort says, could Rosetta Stone be used as a primer app? Probably. I have very little experience with Duolingo. I'm sorry, with Rosetta Stone. I get the sense, just from the little that I know about Rosetta Stone, I get the sense that, yes, it could be used as a primer app along with Duolingo or Pimsleur. Okay. Oops, let me plug my laptop in here. Right, and again, for those who missed earlier, when I talk about a primer app, that's just to help you get a sense of the language. It's just to, for those people who need something to help them get started, right? Like maybe you can't afford to hire a italki tutor to baby you through comprehensible input from absolute zero, right? You don't have enough money to pay an italki tutor for an hour every day to say I nose, one nose, two eyes, right? Theoretically, you could start from day one using nothing but comprehensible input and a little bit of conversation practice and learn that way. If you have a professor or a teacher or a tutor or a friend who is willing to go with you very, very slowly and help you learn that way. Eyes, nose, mouth, talk, speak, right? See, smell. You could theoretically, there are people who have done this, right? There's a very good, it's at least, whether you agree or disagree, or it's at least a thought-provoking video called How to Acquire Any Language, Not Learn It. It's thought-provoking, and it's a strategy that seems to work for some people, but you have to have the right resources. You have to be able to hire a tutor to work with you pretty much every day if you're going to learn through nothing but comprehensible input. And you have to be able to find a tutor who is able to do things the right way, right? Most tutors on italki are going to say, all right, open your book to page 1 and look at this chart. All right, this chart tells you how all of the letters in Arabic make sounds. All right, let's go through the first letter. Okay, that's not comprehensible input. If you want to learn using nothing but comprehensible input, you have to have a tutor who knows what they're doing. Either a tutor or there are some YouTube channels that do it well too. For example, there's a YouTube channel called Comprehensible Thai that I have been learning, and they have a very good absolute beginner course. All right, and it'll show the picture of two people, right? It shows the picture of two people, and then the teacher says, "Man, this is a man, right?" And they show a picture of the man, and they show a picture of the woman, this is a woman. And then they say two people, one man, one woman, two people. And even if you don't know any Thai, you can understand what's going on in the picture, in the video, right? And then you just learn. You learn Thai that way. I also have a YouTube channel, a separate YouTube channel, not this one, a YouTube channel that I call Comprehensible English. No, I'm sorry, that's not the name of it. It's called Fingtem English. Okay, you can look that up if you want. If you want to get a good idea of how to use comprehensible input, or what you should look for in comprehensible input from day one, that's an example, right? Because I have a video where I just say, this is my eye. I have two eyes. 1, 2. 2 eyes. This is my nose. Nose. I have 1 nose, right? And you can understand whether you speak English or not. Okay, so go check out my channel, Comprehensible English. I'm sorry, that's not the name. I don't know why I keep saying that. Finkdom English, or the other channel, Comprehensible Thai. And these are good examples of what you should look for if you want comprehensible from day one. Anyways, if you don't have something like that in the language that you're learning, an app like Duolingo, Pimsleur, probably Rosetta Stone, can at least help you get an intro to the language. And it's structured. Every level builds up slowly. It kind of gives you a little confident boost. Okay, that's fine. It's a primer. It just sparks your beginning of the journey in the language. Just looking through the questions here. Voldemort says, I don't feel like you need to pay anything to learn a new language. And that, yeah, I mean, there is, you can do it. Yeah, you can learn a language for free. There are free comprehensible input that you can find online. There are free conversation apps that you can use. Hello Talk, Tandem, right? Reddit, Facebook. Follow people on Twitter, Instagram. Yeah, then there's free primer apps, Duolingo, and there's free vocabulary acquisition apps. Most of them have a paid component or a paid counterpart, like italki would be to Hello Talk. It's easier if you can afford to pay for some resources that are valuable. But yeah, you can learn a language for free. It's possible. It can be done. Maybe not recommended, but it's possible if you're on a very tight budget. The anti-Duolingo Christ. Okay. Matt says, YouTube helps me more than Duolingo. Hearing and reading along with seeing the natural human expression is better. Yes. In YouTube, if you watch, okay, there's 2 different types of videos that you can watch in YouTube, in my opinion. There's 2 main classes, and this is the right way to think about it. This is the right way to categorize YouTube videos, in my opinion. There's YouTube videos meant to teach you the language. They might teach you about grammar. They might teach you vocabulary words. They might teach you phrases. But it's going to be in English or in your native language. And they're just trying to teach you stuff. They're giving you information. They're trying to teach you knowledge. Don't watch those videos. Don't waste your time with them. If you want to, okay, fine, watch one video and then go to the more valuable type. Okay, so the videos that are not teaching you the language, but videos that are just in your target language. And if you're a brand new beginner, find a comprehensible input video that is 100% in the language you're learning. And if you're an advanced learner or even an intermediate learner who wants to progress to advanced, find native level videos in your target language. Find a vlogger who does something that you're interested in and does it in your target language. I follow a YouTube channel called L'Histoire nous le dira. I think it's something like that. It's a French YouTube channel, and it's all in French. It's for French people, but I can understand 90% of it, and it's about history. So the other day, I watched a long video about the French Revolution, and it was all in French, and I learned a lot. I had studied a little bit about the French Revolution in college, but I don't know everything about it, and I had forgotten quite a bit. And so it was interesting for me to watch this YouTube video about the French Revolution, and I wanted to watch it. I wanted to learn the stuff in the content of the video, but also I was learning French. I was listening to it. It was comprehensible input. That was great. I've also been watching some YouTube series like Lupin is a very popular one right now. Also La Révolution on Netflix. And these are just series that I enjoy watching. I'm compelled to watch the next episode because it's interesting. It's fun. I want to watch it. It holds my attention. I'm entertained by watching these series, but they're also in French. So I'm learning French while I watch. Don't remember why I got on that rant. Oh yeah, all that to say, if you're gonna watch a video on YouTube, make sure it's a video in your target language and preferably about something that's interesting to you. Not a video that's about your target language. I mean, I suppose it could be a video that's in and about your target language, but the important is that you hear them speak language, not hear them speak the language that, I'm sorry, let me rephrase this. The important thing is that you hear them speaking your target language, not hear them speaking your native language. Because for the most part, any time that you spend listening to someone speak your native language is not going to help you learn your target language. Keba Kabbalah says, you said that we don't get fluency with Duolingo or Rosetta Stone or another apps. That's right, but this app make it easy to understand words. They're not wasting time. It's a waste of time once you reach a certain level of proficiency in your target language. Okay, Duolingo can help you learn some basic vocabulary at first. That's fine. It gives you a place to start. That's fine. It's making it easy to understand words. Yeah, but there's better ways to do it. Okay. When I read through, let me give you an example. I have this app on my phone called Meb, and it's all graphic novels and comics in Thai. Okay, so I'm reading this comic book in Thai. It's a graphic novel, and it's for kids. It's pretty easy, and there's lots of pictures. That makes it easy for me to understand words in my target language because I can see what they're doing in the book. I can see what's going on in the story as well as reading the language. That makes it easy to understand. And that's a good method for learning the language. It's comprehensible and it's all input. I'm not translating. I am reading something entirely in the target language. It's helping me learn to think in the target language because I don't translate it in my mind as I read. Okay. So Duolingo helps you, makes it easy to understand words. Yes. And I think it's fine to use Duolingo for a while. There's a place for that. You will quickly outgrow it though, and it will stop being useful. There are better things that you could spend your time doing. All right. Mika the writer says, I like the Bluebird language app. It's $10 a month, but the first month is free, and they have 163 languages included with that price. Okay. I don't like Bluebird language. And let me tell you why. It seems like they treat languages like cookie cutters. Okay. I can see why you might like it. It looks like, oh, it's a cheap, comprehensible input if you use Bluebird. You can maybe see a parallel between Bluebird and Pimsleur. Here's the problem with Bluebird. They take a word in English, and yes, they have 163 languages, right? So they take a word in English, and they translate that word into 163 languages. And then they teach you that word in the 163 other languages, or I guess the 162 other languages. But what they're teaching you is a translation of an English word. I'll give you an example. In English, we have the word brother and the word sister. Okay? So we divide siblings. In English, we divide the concept of siblings by gender. We have male siblings, which are brothers, and we have female siblings, which are sisters. Okay? This is also a problem with the Drops app. This is why I don't use Drops anymore. Same problem with Bluebird languages. In English, we have brothers and we have sisters. They're all siblings and we divide them by gender. That is not the case in Thai. In Thai, you have older siblings and you have younger siblings. Okay, you have what we call P, which is older siblings, and you have Nong, which is younger siblings. And of course, both languages have a way of expressing all of these sentiments, right? Like we could say older brother in English, or we could say younger sister, but those words are not, all of that meaning is not encoded into the word brother. Okay? Brother doesn't tell you whether it's an older brother or a younger brother. Okay. Also, for example, the word grandmother in English, it could be the father of your mother. I'm sorry, the mother of your father, or it could be the mother of your mother. Grandmother just means the mother of a parent. But in Thai, there is a separate word for your paternal grandmother and your maternal grandmother. It's not the same word like it is in English. So when you're using a language learning app like Drops or like Bluebird language, which treats all languages like they're the same, when it comes time to translate the word grandmother, they can't teach you both of those because they've already started on the premise that they're going to teach you just a word for grandmother, right? And for example, in English, in Thai, you could say older brother, or you could say younger brother, but there's no word for just brother. I don't know. Is there? Pi Nong Chai. I don't think I suppose you could say that. But that's not the natural way that a Thai speaker interprets the concept of being a sibling. And it's just very unnatural. And I don't think that's how we should be learning languages, even though it's easy to create an app that has 163 languages if you're going to treat them like cookie cutters. Okay, every language has a word for brother. Every language has a word for grandmother. Every language has a word for sister. And we're just going to translate, and we're going to treat them like every language has these categories when they just don't. Languages don't match up. You can't just translate languages and expect it to always work the exact same way in every language. So I guess that's my opinion on that. Davey says, so learning English videos are bad to learn English? LOL, just look at didn't you have another channel to teach English? No, I didn't say that. I didn't say that channels are bad for learning English. Maybe I explained this poorly. If you have a channel that's, I'm not going to use English as an example because I speak English, but let's say Spanish. Okay, let's say you have a Spanish channel, and the host of the channel comes on and they say, "Hello," in English. They say this. They say, "Hello. Today we're going to learn Spanish, and I'm going to teach you the difference between ser and estar, or I'm going to teach you the difference between por and para." Okay, you use, or it could be anything like that. I'm going to teach you the difference between the imperfect and the preterite, or I'm going to teach you 5 different ways to greet people in Spanish. Okay, and then they go on to say, ser is used for more essential qualities or permanent qualities, where estar is used for more temporary or less identifying qualities, or whatever explanation they go into. When they're speaking English, it's not helpful. Okay, I want to hear them speak Spanish if my goal is to speak Spanish. If my goal is to learn Spanish, I want to hear the YouTube channel speak Spanish. Now, if you go to a YouTube channel and the YouTube channel says, hola, hoy vamos a hablar acerca de las diferencias de ser y estar. Yo soy un hombre y yo estoy feliz. Yo estoy aquí en este cuarto y estoy hablando. I don't know. I'm not, I don't have a Spanish channel. Otherwise, I probably would have come up with a better example than that. But you get what I'm saying? I want to hear them speaking the language that I'm trying to learn. If you find a channel like that, and they speak very clearly and very slowly, and they help you learn the language by speaking the language to you, in my opinion, that is a good channel. And that's what I'm trying to accomplish with my English language channel. If anyone is here missed that earlier, it's Fingtem English. Just do a YouTube search for that. If you're learning Thai, do a YouTube search for Comprehensible Thai. And that, in my opinion, is a good example of a YouTube channel designed to teach you the Thai language. Okay, because it's 100% in Thai. They do not speak any other language on Comprehensible Thai. They speak Thai only. There are other YouTube channels that I have followed in the past where the teacher comes on and they speak English and they say, okay, in this video, we're going to learn X. And then they speak a few sentences in Thai, just to give you examples. But the rest of the video is English. And I'm like, that's not what I want. Mary Camipono says, Pasporto alla tutta mondo, which is a perfect example. Pasporto alla tutta mondo, if you're learning Esperanto, yes, if you're learning Esperanto, I would recommend checking out this video. If you're a beginner, if you're a comenzanto, okay? It's actually a video series, and it's very cheesy. I don't find it to be a particularly compelling show to watch, okay? When I first started watching How I Met Your Mother, I binge watched the whole first season in a week, okay, or a weekend, or I don't know. I watched the whole show very quickly, okay. I could sit down and watch an entire season of Arrested Development in one night. I could, okay. Pasporto alla tutta mondo is not like that. If I'm watching Pasporto alla tutta mondo, it's because I specifically I have the goal of learning Esperanto. Okay. It's not super compelling, but it is comprehensible. Pasporto alla tutta mondo is a sitcom. It's all on YouTube. You can just search for it. It's all on YouTube. And if you have even a quite basic understanding of Esperanto, you will be able to understand what's going on in this TV show. Okay, it's very easy. They speak clearly. They use a lot of hand motions, and they are very deliberate about making it easy to understand for someone who is not yet proficient in Esperanto. And it's interesting as long as you are interested in learning Esperanto. If you were a native speaker of Esperanto and you watched this show, this is not the kind of show that you would watch just to entertain yourself. It's the kind of show you watch to learn Esperanto. But it's fine. It's comprehensible input. It's not comprehensible and super compelling. There is a bit of overlap between comprehensible and compelling input, right? Well, there's of course there is. But even input that's not super compelling on its own can be somewhat compelling if you are trying to learn the language. Okay. So I recommend Pasporto alla tutto mondo to anyone learning Esperanto. Too Many Choices says it needs to be on the edge of comprehension. And yeah, that's a good goal. Now, granted, your comprehension is always going to be changing. Your comprehension is always going to be improving, right? Today, I can read something in Thai that I was not able to understand a month ago. So it's a good goal. It's a good target to always be taking in input that is right at the edge of what you can comprehend. It's a moving target, though. So don't get too caught up with always watching movies, watching YouTube videos, reading books, listening to music. Don't get too hyper-focused. Don't develop tunnel vision with always trying to be right on the edge of what you can understand, okay? In my opinion, it's better to get close to that point, get close to the edge, and spend more time doing it, right? Like, I have fallen into the trap of always trying to find the perfect language learning resource. And I go on Google, I type in, or I go on Amazon, I type in graded readers in French, okay? Graphic novel in French. And I'm always looking precisely for a book that fits my level, right? So maybe I'll type in graphic reader, a graphic novel for B2 French student. And I might spend a half hour, I might spend an hour looking for the perfect book that will help me be able to read something that is exactly at my current level. Two problems with that. I said two, but I meant two problems with that. One, that half an hour or hour or 2 hours that you spent looking for a book is time that you could have spent reading something else in your target language. Two, let's say you spend all of this time looking for the perfect book for you, and then you get halfway through the book and you've grown in your target language. Well, your target has just grown now, right? That's why some books, for example, Gerda Malaperis in Esperanto, it starts off very, very easy, and then it progressively gets more advanced as you read through the book. Like, every chapter of the book is more, it has a more advanced level of the language than the previous chapter. And that can be useful, you know, but what are the chances that you're actually going to progress through learning Esperanto at the exact same rate that the book progresses in, you know, progressively more advanced levels? You know, it can happen, but it's better to get close to your current level of comprehension than to be too hyper-focused on getting exactly there. But yes, I do agree, though. Like, all of that said, as a general principle, you want to try to get close to your current level of comprehension. What level of English do I need to understand this live? B2. Okay. On Duolingo website, there is an event page, and people hold language learning or practicing events spontaneously. I find it sorry about that, guys. I'm not sure if we're still live. Did the stream crash? Yes, it did. We had a power outage here, which is also why my lighting turned off there. That was very strange. We had a power outage for about 5-10 seconds. So anyways, it seems like we're back. Connection is a lot weaker, so I'm probably gonna have to end the stream here. Okay, if you can still see me, if you have any questions or questions that I have not yet answered, or any question at all, go ahead and leave a comment in the, not in the chat, because the chat will go away once the stream is over, but leave a comment in the comment section below this video. So I'm going to end the broadcast here. Leave a comment for me, and I will go through and answer your questions under this video as best as I can with my now very limited conversation going. So let's keep chatting. Leave a comment below.